3 girls, 1 grave, a secret that should have stayed buried. Vivian Holloway stood motionless in the center of Greenwood Cemetery, staring at the 3 girls huddled together at a gravestone 50 feet away. His breath caught in his chest. His phone slipped from his hand and hit the grass with a muted thud. It wasn't possible. The girls were 13, maybe 14, identical, triplets. They sat shoulder to shoulder in the fading autumn light, each holding a single white daisy. Their faces were somber, their eyes fixed on the name carved into the stone before them. Tessa Howard, loving mother and wife, Vivian's wife, his dead wife. But it wasn't the grave that made his knees buckle. It was their faces, the sharp line of their jaws, the curve of their brows. The way the tallest one bit her lip exactly the way Tessa used to when she was thinking too hard. And their eyes. His eyes. Dark, deep-set, unmistakable. Vivian took a shaky step forward, his Italian loafers sinking into the soft earth. His heart hammered so violently he thought it might crack his ribs. He'd come to this cemetery once a year, always alone, always on the anniversary of Tessa's death. 13 years. 13 silent visits to apologize to a woman who could no longer hear him. But today, he wasn't alone. The girl in the yellow sweater noticed him first. She stiffened, her hand instinctively reaching for her sister's. The other 2 turned, their eyes wide and wary. They looked like deer ready to bolt. Vivian opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. What could he possibly say? Who are you? Why do you look like me? Why are you at my wife's grave? The girl in the yellow sweater stood slowly, placing herself between him and her sisters, protective, fierce, just like Tessa. Can we help you? She asked, her voice polite, but edged with suspicion. Vivian's throat burned. That grave, he managed, his voice cracking. Tessa Howard. She was... He stopped, swallowed. She was my wife. The 3 girls exchanged glances. Something passed between them, silent and swift. Then the one in yellow spoke again, her tone softer now, almost pitying. She was our mother. The world tilted. Vivian staggered backward, his vision blurring. No, that wasn't possible. Tessa had been 5 months pregnant when she died. The baby, his baby, had died with her. That's what they told him. That's what he'd believed for 13 years. But if these girls were telling the truth, where? His voice broke. He forced the words out. Where have you been? Who raised you? The girl in yellow hesitated. Her sisters stood now too, flanking her like soldiers. One of them, the smallest with the maroon sweater, whispered something Vivian couldn't hear. The third girl, in brown, shook her head sharply. Finally, the girl in yellow answered. Miss Lorraine, she found us when we were babies. She's been taking care of us ever since. Found you? Vivian's voice rose, sharper than he intended. Found you? Where? The girl pointed at the grave. Here. Vivian's blood turned to ice. Someone left us here, she continued, her voice trembling now. At our mother's grave, the night she was buried. The ground beneath Vivian gave way. He sank to his knees, his hands pressing into the cold earth. Someone had left them, abandoned them, his daughters, his children, and he'd never known. Who? He whispered, his voice raw. Who left you? The girl in yellow looked away, her jaw tightened. When she finally spoke, her words were barely audible. Our grandmother. Now, before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me, what would you do if you found out you had children you never knew existed? And don't forget to subscribe, because this story is about to get even darker. Vivian couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The word grandmother echoed in his skull like a death knell. Tessa's mother, Regina Howard, the woman who'd looked him in the eye at Tessa's funeral and told him his unborn child was gone. the woman who'd held his hand while he wept over an empty bassinet he'd assembled in what was supposed to be a nursery. The woman who'd whispered, "I'm so sorry, Vivian. The baby didn't make it." She'd lied, and she'd taken his daughters from him. "Sir?" The girl in yellow stepped closer, her hand hovering near his shoulder but not quite touching. "Are you okay?" Vivian looked up at her through blurred vision. She had Tessa's nose, the same small constellation of freckles across her left cheek. But her eyes, those eyes were his. All three of them had inherited his eyes, the one thing he'd always hoped to pass on to his children, children he'd mourned without ever holding. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice hoarse. She hesitated, glancing back at her sisters. The smallest one nodded almost imperceptibly. "Iris," she said finally. "Iris Howard." "Iris," Vivian repeated, tasting the name. "Beautiful. Tessa would have loved it." He looked at the other two. "And you?" The girl in brown stepped forward, chin lifted in defiance. She had Tessa's fire. "Jade Howard," the smallest in maroon whispered. "Violet Howard." "Iris, Jade, Violet. Flowers, of course." Tessa had loved flowers. She'd wanted to name their baby after her favorite bloom, whichever one was in season when the child was born. Someone had remembered. Someone had cared enough to honor Tessa's wish. "Miss Lorraine," Vivian said, forcing himself to his feet. His legs trembled but held. "The woman who found you, where is she?" "At home," Jade said, her tone sharp with protectiveness. "Where we should be getting back to. It's almost dark." Vivian checked his watch. 6:45. The cemetery would close soon. He looked at the three girls standing before him like a fortress, shoulders squared, hands linked. They didn't trust him. Why would they? He was a stranger in an expensive suit who'd appeared out of nowhere, asking questions that clearly frightened them. But he was also their father, and he'd already lost 13 years. "I need to meet her," Vivian said, his voice steadier now. "Miss Lorraine, I need to understand what happened. Please." Iris exchanged another look with her sisters. Violet shook her head frantically, her eyes wide with panic. Jade's jaw tightened, her posture radiating distrust. But Iris studied him with an intensity that made Vivian's chest ache. She was searching for something, a reason to believe him, a reason to take a leap of faith. "Why should we trust you?" she asked quietly. Vivian reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. His hands shook as he extracted a photograph, its edges worn from years of being carried. He held it out to Iris. It was a picture of Tessa, 8 months pregnant, laughing in the sunlight. Her hand rested on her swollen belly. Vivian stood behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist, his face buried in her hair. Iris took the photo with trembling fingers. Jade and Violet crowded close, their eyes widening. "That's," Violet whispered. "Our mother," Jade finished, her voice cracking. "She was the love of my life," Vivian said, his throat tight. "And I thought I lost everything the day she died. But I was wrong. I didn't lose everything. Someone took everything from me." His voice hardened. "And I'm going to find out why." Iris looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. For a moment she looked exactly like Tessa, vulnerable and brave all at once. "Miss Lorraine lives on Maple Street, number 42. It's not much. We don't have a lot of money." "I don't care about money," Vivian said fiercely. "I care about you, all three of you." Jade stepped forward, her expression guarded but curious. "If you're really our father, why didn't you look for us? Why did it take 13 years? The question was a knife to the chest. Vivian forced himself to meet her gaze. "Because I didn't know you existed. I was told you died with your mother. I mourned you, every single day." His voice broke. "If I had known, if I had even suspected, I would have torn the world apart to find you." Violet wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Our grandmother told us our father didn't want us. That he left before we were born and never came back." Vivian's vision went red. Regina Howard hadn't just abandoned them, she'd poisoned them against him, made them believe they were unwanted, unloved. "That's a lie," he said, his voice shaking with fury. "I wanted you. I want you. And I'm going to prove it." Iris folded the photograph carefully and handed it back to him. "Miss Lorraine gets off work at 7:30. If you come to the house at 8, she'll be there. But—" She paused, her expression fierce. "If you hurt her, if you try to take us away from her without understanding what she's done for us, we won't forgive you." Vivian nodded, respect blooming in his chest. "I promise. I just want the truth." "Then you'll get it," Iris said. She turned to her sisters. "Come on, we need to go." As the three girls walked away, Vivian sank back down beside Tessa's grave. He pressed his palm against the cold stone, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I found them, Tess," he whispered. "Our girls. They're alive. They're beautiful. And I swear to you, I swear on everything I am, I'm going to make this right." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of dying leaves and distant rain. And for the first time in 13 years, Vivian Holloway felt something he thought he'd never feel again. Hope. If you're feeling this story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think Miss Lorraine is going to say when Vivian shows up at her door. And seriously, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Lorraine Bishop's hands trembled as she poured tea into 3 mismatched mugs. The girls sat at the kitchen table, their faces pale, their voices tumbling over each other as they recounted what had happened at the cemetery. "He had Mom's picture, Miss Lorraine. He said he's our father. He cried when he saw us." Lorraine set the teapot down with a sharp clank, her heart hammered against her ribs. 13 years. 13 years of looking over her shoulder, waiting for this moment, praying it would come, terrified that it would. "Girls," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. "Go to your room. I need to think." "But—" Iris started. "Now." The girls exchanged glances but obeyed. Their footsteps echoed up the narrow staircase, and Lorraine sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Vivian Holloway. She'd never met him, but she knew his name, knew his face from the society pages. A self-made millionaire who'd built a tech empire from nothing. Tessa had shown her pictures once, back when Lorraine was just a home health aide, caring for Regina Howard during her recovery from hip surgery. Tessa had loved him desperately, and Regina had hated him for it. Lorraine still remembered the night Tessa died. The screaming, the chaos. Regina's cold, flat voice when she returned from the hospital alone. "The babies survived, all 3 of them, but I won't let them destroy what's left of this family." Lorraine had been horrified. "You can't just abandon them. They're your granddaughters." Regina's eyes had been empty. "They killed my daughter, and I won't raise the children of a man who wasn't good enough for her." That night, Lorraine followed Regina to the cemetery. Watched her place 3 tiny bundles beside Tessa's fresh grave. Watched her walk away without looking back. Lorraine had scooped up those babies and run. She'd reported it to the police as an anonymous abandonment, became a foster parent within weeks, and eventually adopted them when no one came forward. She'd scraped by on her nurse's salary, loved them fiercely, and told them only what she thought they could handle. She'd never expected their father to find them. At exactly 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Lorraine stood, smoothing her worn cardigan. She opened the door to find Vivian Holloway on her porch, his face haggard, his eyes red-rimmed. He looked nothing like the polished businessman from the magazines. He looked shattered. "Mr. Holloway," she said quietly, "you're Lorraine Bishop." It wasn't a question. "I am." "You found my daughters." Lorraine stepped aside. "Come in. We need to talk." Vivian entered the small, cramped living room. His gaze swept over the worn furniture, the patched curtains, the stack of bills on the coffee table. Then he saw the photographs on the wall, 3 smiling girls at every age from infancy to adolescence, Birthday parties, school plays, soccer games, a life he'd missed. I need to know everything, Vivian said, his voice breaking. Who left them? Why? And why no one told me? Lorraine sat down heavily. The person who left them was Regina Howard, your late wife's mother. Vivian's face went white. Why? Because she blamed them for Tessa's death. And she blamed you for existing. Lorraine's voice hardened. She said you weren't good enough for her daughter. That she wouldn't let your children ruin what was left of her family's legacy. Vivian staggered backward, gripping the wall for support. She told me they died. She lied to me. She did. Where is she now? Living in a mansion on the north side, the Howard estate. She inherited everything from Tessa's father. Vivian's hands clenched into fists. She's been living in luxury while my daughters grew up in... He stopped, his jaw working. I'm going to destroy her. Get in line, Lorraine said grimly. Upstairs, three girls pressed their ears against the floorboards, listening to their entire world crack open. Drop a comment. Should Vivian confront the grandmother immediately or focus on his daughters first? Let me know what you would do. Vivian didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse overlooking the city, nursing a glass of whiskey he never drank, staring at the photograph of Tessa until his eyes burned. By dawn, he'd made 3 decisions. First, he would meet with his daughters properly, not as a stranger at a grave, but as their father. Second, he would ensure Lorraine Bishop never worried about money again. She'd given his children everything when she had nothing. Third, Regina Howard would pay for what she'd done. At 9 a.m., his lawyer called. Vivian, I've pulled Regina Howard's records. You need to see this. 20 minutes later, Vivian stood in his office, staring at documents that made his blood boil. Regina had declared the triplets deceased in official paperwork filed 2 days after Tessa's death. She'd collected a life insurance payout meant for the children's care, $500,000, and deposited it into her personal account. She hadn't just abandoned them, she'd profited from their supposed deaths. Can we prosecute? Vivian asked, his voice ice cold. His lawyer nodded grimly. Fraud, child abandonment, falsifying death records. She's looking at serious prison time. Good. File everything. I want her arrested by the end of the week. But first, he had to see his daughters. Lorraine opened the door at 10, her expression guarded. They're nervous, she warned. Don't push too hard. I won't, Vivian promised. The living room felt smaller in daylight. Iris, Jade, and Violet sat on the couch, shoulder to shoulder, watching him with identical wary expressions. Vivian's chest tightened. They looked so much like Tessa, it hurt. He sat across from them, his hands clasped. I know this is overwhelming. I know you don't know me, but I want to change that. He paused. If you'll let me. Jade spoke first, her voice challenging. What do you want from us? To be your father, Vivian said simply. To know you, to make up for lost time. You can't make up 13 years, Jade shot back. You're right, Vivian admitted. I can't, but I can be here for the next 13, and the 13 after that, and every day after. Violet's voice was small. Our grandmother said you didn't want us because we killed our mother. Vivian's vision blurred. He leaned forward, his voice fierce. You didn't kill anyone. Your mother had complications. It wasn't your fault. And I wanted you desperately. I bought 3 cribs. I painted a nursery with stars on the ceiling. I read parenting books and argued with Tessa about baby names. His voice cracked. Losing you broke me. But you're alive, and that's a miracle I never expected. Iris wiped her eyes. Why did she do it? Our grandmother? Because she's cruel, Vivian said bluntly. Because she cared more about control than love. But she's going to face consequences. I promise you that. Jade leaned forward. What kind of consequences? Legal ones. She falsified records, stole money meant for you, abandoned you. Vivian's jaw hardened. She's going to prison. The girls exchanged glances. Violet looked frightened. Jade looked satisfied. Iris looked conflicted. "We never met her," Iris said quietly. "She never came looking for us." "Because she's a coward," Vivian said. "But you have me now and Miss Lorraine and each other." He hesitated. "I know I can't replace the childhood you should have had, but I want to give you the future you deserve. College funds, opportunities, stability." He looked at Lorraine. "For all of you." Lorraine's eyes widened. "Mr. Holloway." "You saved them," Vivian interrupted. "You gave them love when they had nothing. I'm not taking them from you. I'm asking if we can do this together." Jade stood abruptly. "We need to talk. Alone." The three girls disappeared upstairs. Vivian waited, his heart in his throat. When they returned, Iris spoke. "We'll give you a chance, but if you hurt Miss Lorraine, we're done." Vivian smiled through tears. "Deal." What do you think is going to happen when Regina finds out Vivian knows the truth? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Regina Howard's arrest made the evening news. The footage showed her being led from her mansion in handcuffs, her face twisted with rage, photographers swarming like vultures. The anchor's voice was clinical. Socialite Regina Howard faces multiple felony charges including child abandonment, fraud, and falsifying government records in connection with her three granddaughters, who were believed dead for 13 years. Vivian watched from Lorraine's living room, the girls seated around him. Violet buried her face in Iris's shoulder. Jade's expression was unreadable. Iris stared at the screen with something like wonder. "She looks so ordinary," Iris whispered. "I always imagined she'd look like a monster." "Monsters rarely do," Lorraine said quietly. The broadcast cut to an interview with Vivian's lawyer. But before he could speak, the station played a recording, a voicemail Regina had left with the hospital the night Tessa died. Regina's voice crackled through the speakers. "The father doesn't need to know about the children. He was never worthy of my daughter. Let him think they died with her. It's cleaner that way." The room went silent. Vivian's hands shook. He'd heard the recording earlier, but hearing it again, in front of his daughters, made him want to put his fist through the wall. "She really hated you," Jade said, her voice hollow. "She didn't know me," Vivian replied. "She hated what I represented, someone who took Tessa away from her control." "But why punish us?" Violet asked, tears streaming down her face. "We were just babies." Vivian knelt before her, taking her small hands in his. "Because people like Regina don't see children as people. They see them as possessions, extensions of themselves. When your mother chose me over her mother's plans, Regina couldn't accept it. And when Tessa died, Regina couldn't separate her grief from her anger." He squeezed Violet's hands gently. "But that's her sickness, not your fault. Never your fault." The doorbell rang. Lorraine frowned. "We're not expecting anyone." She opened the door to find a woman in her 60s, elegantly dressed, her eyes red-rimmed. "I'm looking for Vivian Holloway," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm Patricia, Regina Howard's sister." Vivian stood slowly. "Come in." Patricia entered, her gaze sweeping over the girls. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God! They look just like Tessa." She turned to Vivian, tears spilling. "I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know what Regina did." "Then why are you here?" Vivian asked coldly. "Because I found something. After Regina's arrest, I went through her house." Patricia pulled an envelope from her purse with shaking hands. "Letters, from you to Tessa. Dozens of them. Regina intercepted them after Tessa died. You kept writing to her, to the grave, and Regina stole every single one." Vivian's breath caught. After Tessa's funeral, he'd written letters for months, pouring out his grief, his love, his dreams for the child he thought he'd lost. He'd left them at her grave, believing somehow she'd know. Patricia handed him the envelope. "There's more." Regina kept a journal, In it, she wrote about the adoption lawyer she bribed to falsify the death certificates, about the insurance money she stole, about watching you grieve and feeling satisfied that you were suffering. Jade stood abruptly. She enjoyed it? Patricia nodded, sobbing. My sister was sick. I knew she was controlling, but I never imagined. She looked at the girls. I'm so sorry. If I'd known you existed, I would have fought for you. Iris's voice was quiet. Did she ever mention us? In her journal? Patricia hesitated, then nodded. Once. She wrote, "The triplets would be 5 today. I wonder if they're alive. I wonder if I care. Mostly, I'm just relieved they're not my problem." Violet made a broken sound. Lorraine pulled her close. Vivian's voice was deadly calm. Where is this journal? I gave it to the police, but I made copies. For you. Patricia handed him a folder. She's going to prison for a long time, Vivian, but I wanted you to understand why. Regina lost Tessa and couldn't accept that death is random, so she made you the villain, and she punished your children for surviving when her daughter didn't. Vivian opened the journal. Regina's handwriting was elegant, precise, and utterly devoid of remorse. He closed it, his jaw tight. Thank you for bringing this. Patricia looked at the girls one more time. For what it's worth, Tessa loved you. She talked about you constantly, about names she'd chosen, about the life she'd planned. Her voice broke. You were wanted, so desperately wanted. After Patricia left, the girls sat in stunned silence. Finally, Jade spoke. I'm glad she's going to prison. Me too, Iris whispered. Violet looked up at Vivian. Will you read us the letters? The ones you wrote to Mom? Vivian's throat burned. Every single one. This story is getting intense. Drop a comment with your thoughts and make sure you've subscribed. 3 weeks after Regina's arrest, everything fell apart. The media frenzy was relentless. Reporters camped outside Lorraine's house, shouting questions at the girls when they left for school. Photographers captured every moment, Iris shielding her sisters, Jade shouting at cameras, Violet crying into Lorraine's shoulder. The headlines were vicious. Abandoned heiresses, the triplets worth millions. Holloway's hidden daughters, a father's redemption, or a publicity stunt. Vivian hired security, but the damage was done. The girls' school became a circus. Classmates whispered, teachers stared. Everything the girls had known, their quiet, normal life, was destroyed. And then the custody battle began. Regina's lawyer filed an emergency motion from jail, claiming Lorraine had kidnapped the children and that Vivian was an unfit father who'd never bothered to search for them. It was desperate, ridiculous, but it tied everything up in legal red tape. They're using the system to torture us, Vivian's lawyer explained grimly, dragging this out, making it painful. The court ordered a home study. Social workers descended on both Vivian's penthouse and Lorraine's modest house, asking invasive questions, scrutinizing every detail. The girls were interviewed separately, forced to relive their trauma over and over. Iris stopped smiling. Jade's anger turned inward. Violet stopped eating. One night, Vivian arrived at Lorraine's house to find Violet in the hospital. Malnutrition and stress-induced collapse. He sat beside her bed, holding her small hand, watching her sleep. She looked so fragile, so breakable. This is my fault, he whispered to Lorraine. I brought this chaos into their lives. You brought truth, Lorraine corrected. Regina brought the chaos 13 years ago. But Vivian couldn't shake the guilt. His daughters had been safe, hidden but safe. And now they were exposed, vulnerable, suffering. 2 days later, the worst happened. A tabloid published a photo of Tessa's death certificate alongside pictures of the girls. The headline read, "The babies who killed their mother. Should Vivian Holloway forgive them?" Jade saw it first. She came home from school, her face pale, clutching a printed copy someone had taped to her locker. Is this what people think? She asked, her voice shaking. That we killed her? No, Vivian said fiercely. That's garbage. Lies. But the damage was done. Jade locked herself in her room. Iris withdrew completely, refusing to speak to anyone. Violet stopped going to school altogether. Lorraine was exhausted. The bills were piling up: legal fees, medical bills, security costs. Vivian covered everything, but the emotional toll was crushing all of them. One night, Iris confronted Vivian in the living room. Her eyes were hollow. Maybe we should just disappear, change our names, move somewhere nobody knows us. No, Vivian said. We don't run. Why not? Iris's voice cracked. Everything was fine before you showed up. We were nobody. We were safe. The words hit like bullets. Vivian staggered back, speechless. Iris, Lorraine started. It's true, Iris shouted. Our lives are ruined. Violet's in therapy. Jade won't talk to anyone. I can't sleep because reporters are outside our house every night. And for what? So we can have a father who wasn't there for 13 years? That wasn't his fault, Lorraine said firmly. I know, Iris screamed. I know it wasn't his fault, but it still happened, and now everything's worse. Maybe Regina was right. Maybe we're cursed. Maybe we destroy everything we touch. She ran upstairs. A door slammed. Vivian sat down heavily, his face in his hands. Lorraine sat beside him, her own eyes wet. She doesn't mean it, Lorraine whispered. Yes, she does, Vivian said. And she's right. I've made everything worse. You've made them seen, Lorraine corrected. For the first time in their lives, someone's fighting for them. That matters. Does it? Vivian's voice was hollow. Because right now, all I see is 3 girls who wish I'd never found them. Outside, cameras flashed in the darkness. Inside, a family that had barely begun to form was fracturing under the weight of the world's cruelty. And in a prison cell across town, Regina Howard smiled. Things are looking hopeless right now. Drop a comment. How do you think Vivian can fix this? And make sure you are subscribed. Vivian didn't sleep for 3 days. He sat in his office, surrounded by legal documents, media reports, and the letters he'd written to Tessa 13 years ago. Somewhere in the chaos, there had to be an answer. A way to protect his daughters without destroying them in the process. On the 4th morning, his phone rang. Patricia. Vivian, I found something else. Can you meet me? They met at a coffee shop across town. Patricia slid a worn leather journal across the table, different from Regina's. Smaller, older. This was Tessa's, Patricia said quietly. I found it hidden in Regina's closet. She kept it all these years. Vivian's hands trembled as he opened it. Tessa's handwriting filled the pages, her hopes, her dreams, her fears during her pregnancy. Then he found the entry dated 2 weeks before she died. Mom is furious that I'm naming the babies after flowers instead of family names. She says Vivian and I are disrespecting the Howard legacy. But these are our daughters. Iris, Jade, and Violet. Strong names for strong girls. If anything happens to me, I want Vivian to raise them. He'll love them the way they deserve. He'll let them be whoever they want to be. Mom will try to control them like she controlled me, but I won't let that happen. I've written a letter to my lawyer. If I don't survive this pregnancy, everything goes to Vivian. The house, the money, everything. Mom gets nothing. Vivian looked up, his vision blurred. There was a will? Patricia nodded. Tessa filed it with her lawyer 3 days before she died. Regina intercepted it, paid the lawyer to destroy the original and pretend it never existed. The house, Tessa's trust fund, everything. It should have gone to you and the girls. Regina stole it all. Vivian's phone was in his hand before Patricia finished speaking. I need the lawyer's name. Now. Within hours, Vivian's legal team had the evidence. The lawyer, terrified of prosecution, confessed everything. Tessa's will was reconstructed from backup files. The Howard estate legally belonged to Vivian and his daughters, but Vivian didn't care about the money. He cared about what the will represented, proof that Tessa wanted him to raise their children, proof that he wasn't an intruder. He was chosen. That evening, he returned to Lorraine's house. The girls were in the living room, silent and defeated. Iris wouldn't look at him. Jade's arms were crossed. Violet stared at her hands. Vivian knelt in front of them, holding Tessa's journal. "Your mother kept a diary," he said softly. "I want to read you something." He read Tessa's entry aloud, his voice breaking on every word. When he finished, the room was silent except for soft crying. Iris looked up, tears streaming. "She wanted us?" "Desperately," Vivian whispered. "And she wanted me to be your father. She chose that. Chose us." Jade's walls crumbled. "We thought everyone keeps saying we killed her. You didn't kill anyone," Vivian said fiercely. "Your mother had a blood clotting disorder. The doctors missed it. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't mine. It was just—" His voice broke. "A tragedy. But you three surviving? That was the miracle. The only good thing that came from the worst day of my life." Violet threw her arms around him, sobbing. Jade followed. Iris hesitated, then collapsed into his embrace. Lorraine watched from the doorway, her hand over her mouth. "I know I can't fix everything," Vivian said into their hair. "I know the media is awful and the world is cruel, but I'm not giving up on you, ever. We're going to get through this together." Iris pulled back, wiping her eyes. "How?" Vivian smiled, his first real smile in weeks. "We fight back. We tell our story. Our way. No more hiding, no more shame. We show the world who you really are." Jade's eyes lit up with something dangerous. "What did you have in mind?" "A press conference," Vivian said. "You, me, and Miss Lorraine. We tell the truth. All of it. Regina's crimes. Tessa's will. Your story. We take control of the narrative." Lorraine stepped forward. "Are you sure they're ready for that?" Iris stood, her spine straight. "We're ready. We're done being victims." Jade nodded. "Let's end this." Violet's voice was small but determined. "For Mom." "For Mom," Vivian agreed. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in the darkness. "Yes, finally they're fighting back." Comment below. What do you think the press conference should reveal? Subscribe now. The press conference was held in the ballroom of Vivian's downtown headquarters. Every major news outlet attended. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters filled every seat. Vivian stood at the podium, flanked by his daughters and Lorraine. The girls wore matching blue dresses, Tessa's favorite color. Their hands were linked. "My name is Vivian Holloway," he began, his voice steady. 13 years ago, I lost my wife, Tessa, to complications during childbirth. I was told our children died with her. I grieved them every single day." He paused. 3 weeks ago, I discovered the truth. My daughters didn't die. They were abandoned at their mother's grave by the woman who should have protected them. Their grandmother, Regina Howard. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. "Regina didn't just abandon them," Vivian continued. "She falsified death certificates. She collected life insurance meant for their care, $500,000, and kept it. She destroyed my wife's will, which named me as guardian and left everything to our daughters. She bribed lawyers. She intercepted letters I wrote to Tessa's grave. And when I finally found my children, she used the legal system to terrorize them." A reporter shouted, "Why didn't you search for them?" "Because I believed they were dead," Vivian said, his voice cracking. "I had no reason to doubt it. The death certificates were official. The hospital records were altered. Regina made sure I had no trail to follow." He looked at his daughters. "But they survived because of one woman." Lorraine stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm. "I found 3 newborns at a grave on a November night 13 years ago. I was a nurse. I knew they wouldn't survive the cold, so I took them home. I reported it as an anonymous abandonment. I became a foster parent, And eventually, I adopted them. She looked at the cameras. I gave them everything I had. It wasn't much, but it was love. And that's what children need most. Iris stepped to the microphone next. Her voice trembled but held. My name is Iris Howard. These are my sisters, Jade and Violet. For 13 years, we thought we were unwanted, that our father abandoned us, that our mother's death was our fault. Tears streamed down her face. But we were wrong. Our father loved us. Our mother wanted us. And the only person who should be ashamed is the grandmother who threw us away. Jade spoke next, her voice fierce. The media has called us cursed, said we killed our mother, published our trauma for entertainment. But we're not a tragedy, we're survivors, and we won't let Regina Howard or anyone else define us. Violet's voice was barely audible. We just want to be a family. That's all we've ever wanted. The room was silent except for the sound of cameras clicking. Then a reporter stood. What happens to Regina Howard now? Vivian's expression hardened. She's facing 15 years in prison for fraud, child abandonment, and falsification of records. Her assets have been frozen. Tessa's estate, including the Howard mansion, legally belongs to my daughters. Regina will have nothing, just like she left them with nothing. Another reporter. What about you? Are you taking custody? We're building something better than custody, Vivian said. Miss Lorraine isn't losing her daughters. She's gaining a partner. We're co-parenting. The girls will split time between both homes. They'll have stability, resources, and most importantly, love from everyone who fought for them. The questions continued for 30 minutes, but the narrative had shifted. By the time the press conference ended, the headlines weren't about scandal. They were about justice. That night, the girls sat in Vivian's penthouse, their first time staying overnight. He'd converted 3 rooms into bedrooms, each decorated with their favorite colors and interests. Jade explored hers, touching the soccer trophies Vivian had bought, the art supplies, the telescope by the window. This is really ours? Forever, Vivian promised. Violet curled up on her bed, hugging a stuffed giraffe. It's so quiet here, no reporters. No reporters, Vivian confirmed. Just us. Iris stood at the window, looking at the city lights. Do you think Mom would be proud? Vivian joined her, his hand on her shoulder. I think she's been proud every single day. You 3 are exactly who she hoped you'd be. Strong, brave, kind. We learned that from Miss Lorraine, Iris said softly. Then we're all lucky, Vivian replied. His phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. Regina just accepted a plea deal, 15 years, no parole, it's over. Vivian showed the girls. Jade smiled, a real smile. Good. It's finally over, Violet whispered. Iris turned to Vivian. No, it's finally beginning. Justice served. But there's still one more chapter, the conclusion you've been waiting for. Drop a comment and stay subscribed. 1 year later, everything had changed. The Howard mansion had been sold. Vivian donated the proceeds to organizations supporting abandoned children. The girls didn't want anything that came from Regina's cruelty. They wanted to build something new. Lorraine moved into a beautiful home 3 blocks from Vivian's penthouse. The girls split their time evenly, but most evenings, everyone ended up together anyway, cooking dinner, doing homework, laughing over board games. Iris had joined the debate team and discovered a passion for law. I want to help kids like us, she told Vivian one night. Kids who slip through the cracks. You'll be magnificent, he'd replied, his heart swelling with pride. Jade channeled her anger into art, creating stunning paintings that galleries were already asking to display. Her latest piece, a portrait of 3 girls holding hands in front of a grave, had won a national youth competition. Violet, the quietest of the 3, had started writing. Stories about found families, about second chances, about love that survives even the darkest betrayals. The media attention had faded. Occasionally, a journalist would request an interview, but Vivian always declined. Their story belonged to them now, not the world. On a crisp November afternoon, exactly 14 years after Tessa's death, Vivian and the girls returned to Greenwood Cemetery. Lorraine came too, and Patricia, who'd become a beloved aunt to the girls. They stood before Tessa's grave, now surrounded by flowers the girls had planted: daisies, roses, lilies, a garden of color in the gray cemetery. Vivian knelt, tracing Tessa's name with his fingers. "We made it, Tess. Our girls are incredible. You'd be so proud." Iris placed fresh flowers on the grave. "Hi, Mom. We brought someone new to meet you." She gestured to a young man standing awkwardly nearby, her boyfriend Daniel, a kind-eyed college student who treated her like she was precious. Jade rolled her eyes affectionately. "Iris is in love. You'd tease her mercilessly." "You're one to talk," Iris shot back. "You've been texting that girl from art class for 3 months." Violet laughed, a sound that had become more frequent over the past year. "Mom, they're both disasters, but they're happy disasters." Vivian smiled, his throat tight. His daughters were healing, growing, becoming exactly who they were meant to be. "We forgave you, Mom," Iris said softly, her hand resting on the gravestone, "for leaving. We know it wasn't your choice, and we forgive ourselves too, for surviving when you couldn't." "We're not cursed," Jade added firmly. "We're blessed, because even though you're gone, you gave us each other, and somehow you gave us Dad, and Miss Lorraine, and a family that fought for us." Violet pulled out a letter she'd written. "I wrote this for you, about our year. All the good things. I'll leave it here so you can read it." She tucked it beneath a stone, her eyes glistening. Patricia stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you from Regina, Tessa. But I promise you, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure your girls know they're loved." Lorraine placed a hand on Vivian's shoulder. "She'd be grateful, for all of us." They stood in silence for a moment, the November wind rustling through the trees. Then Violet spoke, her voice clear and certain. "We should go home, all of us, together." "Home," Iris agreed, linking arms with her sisters. Vivian stood, his heart fuller than he'd thought possible. He looked at his daughters, these miraculous girls who'd been abandoned and found, broken and healed, lost and reclaimed. "Let's go home," he said. As they walked away from the grave, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing the cemetery in golden light. Behind them, fresh flowers swayed in the breeze, a promise kept, and a love that would never die. Iris looked back once, her hand in Vivian's. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." And somewhere, in the spaces between heartbeats and hope, Tessa smiled. The end. Thank you so much for joining me on this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment telling me your favorite moment. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I have so many more stories to share with you. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about who fights for you when the world tries to break you. Stay blessed, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next story.